Seychelles, my hometown school, and I congratulate you on your son's graduation tomorrow. Just sticking with you for a second, you know, it's interesting the history of the U.S. not having an embassy in the Seychelles. It was a cost savings move. Seychelles is a pretty important country. They're classified as free in Freedom House's 2023 Freedom in the World Index of Governance Conditions. Seychelles has enjoyed significant economic success. It's long had the highest per capita GDP in Africa, classed by the World Bank as a high-income country. I sometimes think in the U.S. we tend to focus a lot of attention on problems without rewarding success, and that we might be better at magnifying success if we work with the successful and shine a spotlight on their success and then use that to create a desire in the region to be as successful as this country. And so the fact that the Seychelles embassy was closed in the 1990s just as a cost savings move, and then served from Mauritius, is kind of a bit of evidence that I think fits into a pattern that we have of not paying attention to successful countries. I'm so glad that the Biden administration decided that this was a relationship that was worthy of the U.S. reestablishing. And having managed the responsibility from Mauritius earlier in your career, I mean, you're the perfect person to have the opportunity to reopen this. And I understand that this has also been very well received by the Seychelles, that the U.S. is upgrading the relationship in this way. Am I correct about that?
Yeah, thank you for the question, Senator. I couldn't agree more. Yes, the host government is extremely pleased that we've finally returned to the Seychelles. When I was credentialed there and representing the United States on my visits, I never had a meeting when it was not mentioned, why don't you have an embassy here? I've spent a good part of the last 15 years advocating for this, and understand that that predates the return to true constitutional democracy with the change of power between parties. But it just simply became even more important since then. As you said, to recognize success, to be part of that, to encourage it, and yeah, to find ways to reward that. We have national interests there, and it's important to be there in order to exercise those interests.
I generally think that we do much better in trying to encourage success if we're not lecturing others on how to be successful, but if there are examples in their region of success that they can look at and draw lessons from. And I am excited that you'll be in this position with this upgraded responsibility. Ms. Sari, I want to come to you now in your position on an oceans question. I'm the chair of the Americas Subcommittee here on the Senate Foreign Relations Committee, and I'm really worried about the illegal, unreported, and unregulated fishing, primarily by China, primarily in the Pacific. Talk a little bit about, from the State Department perspective, what you might do to prioritize dealing with that challenge.
Senator, thank you very much for that question. As you pointed out, IUU fishing, it impacts ocean health. It is one of the largest causes of overfishing, and so it means it is a food security threat to a number of countries. It's an economic threat to our fishermen, and it's a national and human rights threat because of forced labor and human rights abuses that take place. There's a lot, and first of all, I really want to say thank you to Congress for the Maritime Safe Act. We need a whole-of-government approach, and that starts from when the fish gets on a boat all the way to when it ends up on a consumer's plate here in the U.S. And so there's a lot of work that we're trying to do through the interagency process to elevate illegal or IUU fishing. It would be a priority of mine. I would look forward to working with this committee and Congress to see if there's even more tools that we could use to address IUU.
We would love to work with you on that. One last question that I wasn't intending to ask, but you mentioned space in your opening testimony, and obviously a concern about international cooperation in space is with more and more satellites, more and more platforms up in space, the risks of collisions that would damage investments but also create debris that could cause all kinds of other challenges is the classic kind of a problem for which there has to be some global norms and rules and solutions to keep everybody's investment safe. What role, other parts of the U.S. government are involved in this, but what role would your office have in trying to find the right rules of the road?
Sure.
for space?
OES works with Department of Defense, NASA, FCC on issues around potential marine debris. OES's specific role is around the peaceful use of space, so it's about trying to do best practices in order to avoid collisions. If orbital debris does take place, working with the country, if it's our debris or if it's their debris as well. So it's really around space diplomacy efforts.
Okay. Thank you. I yield back, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Senator Ricketts?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Dr. Kingeson, the University of Nebraska Medical Center has one of 3 biocontainment facilities